Well, I kind of thought that we would have a few more because I wrote up my flip charts, but maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11. Yeah, we will. I'm going to, maybe you and the young lady there and Rye can, basically, the reason why I'm doing the integrity thing is because with the shrinking of the planet and the socioeconomic things going across the planet, it seems like our values are also shrinking. Also appears to be that integrity is one of the ones that are being just shot out of the window. So I wanted to, this is an exercise you all would do. This is not my work, it's not a similar work, this is work that's on the web that you can pull up. But I thought it would be interesting if we could discuss what integrity actually means. So I'm thinking maybe, this question maybe you two can work on, and it is, how does your honesty and integrity affect the way you feel about yourself? So maybe you two can work on that. And then Rye and Alex, why do people cheat even though they know it's wrong? And why shouldn't you? And here's a marker. For you and Alex. Gladys, and I know you, I can't think of your name. Juan, right. Is it wrong to give away free food to a friend if you work at a restaurant? Or to take some for yourself? Or to occasionally steal something small? So maybe Juan and Gladys can do that one. And young lady, well, maybe if one of you could come up and join her. I know you can bring your lunch. I know you have to leave at in 30 minutes. So let me finish reading the questions. What could be the long-term effects of someone stealing or lying, even if it's just a little bit? So, you young lady and the young lady there. What is your name? Caitlin. Thank you. And your name? Ivana. Caitlin and Ivana. Michael. And the young lady there, what is your name? Lai. I know you all have to leave, so what can you do to change how you and your friends act in terms of integrity? So if you and Michael could work on this one, and you young lady, you and I will work together. You and I can sit over here, I guess, and I know you have to leave. And our question is, why should you change and try to become totally honest? And the expectation is, after 10 minutes, I'm going to, Ted Curry. After, well, Ted, I will have you work with Lai, right? What was your first name? Yuvi. Ted, come over, work with Yuvi. That's right. As soon as you come back, you have to get put to work.
All right, right up front, huh? Good to see you.
How you doing? Good, and so busy.
Well, me too.
I know.
I couldn't miss the best thing in town.
Oh, thank you. So, we're talking about integrity today. And the questions that we have here, everyone has been assigned to an assignment. We're going to report out quickly, and then I have a couple of other things to give out. So if you and Yuvi could work on that. Yuvi, that's Ted. Ted, that's you.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Wish we could go back. I don't know if you know Mike. Yeah. Is it? Oh.
I feel like I should be writing those. Are all good. You want to write those or? Oh yeah, put those down. Those are good. Let's see. Make sure we're reliable.
I do.
People can trust you.
Can you trust it? and myself, maybe.
I guess
Yeah, I find that people who lie to other people also really lie to themselves a lot.
Add value to items.
And that just makes it harder for you to accurately address things you need to work on.
changing phrases.
Yeah, like, if you're not honest with yourself, it's like you, yeah, or like,
Basically, in different words.
And that, you know, there's.
Their benefit is that someone else's loss.
I remember being
Yes, right.
13,
Somebody
you know, like, what really made the change
tripped
for
over
me was
a wire and stopped.
if I didn't lie about it, I wouldn't remember all the lies that I had told, and it was just simpler to just be honest all the time, you know,
And then they use that as
not
an
have to worry about who I
excuse
said
for
what
stopping
to
the
do,
task.
you know.
And they kept running. Right. And it wasn't working. It's true. Do you see? They could have like.
So you said like that can run regularly. Oh, sorry, that's a strong word, man.
I don't understand. What is? There be a sense of you've had clinicals? Yeah, we started. Yeah. Okay. And if you see anything, are they people pretty honest, do you think? How much you see?
There are some that are better than others.
Okay.
But like, you're horrible, but I do it.
Yeah, I kind of like just having it.
Or whatever, I know, like, so I feel like I deserve it.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, that's really
Some point.
central.
That's about as big as I can ever aim.
Really? Like if I, the copy and paste would have been done previously, you mean?
yeah.
And they haven't done it. And they haven't done the.
I never got past those.
Because like, they
I never got past those.
Where are you? What
I also think there's some kind of a relationship between like people who lie, they do it so that they don't have to have like hard conversations or look at things about themselves that they like. And if you're honest about them, you know,
Oh, I have one. Thank you.
it forces you to actually confront things that you know, and like just really be present.
Leave it there, and I'm gonna have somebody read what the question was and then read the response.
It's very kind. Even though you speak
Yeah, I mean, like leaving is a change, is that? And like, like need to change.
I'm not married.
And Dr. Hanson, it's an academic and disability support.
I'm trying not to say that.
So Mark Davidson works with me, he oversees the literature program. And other students with disabilities. And I love putting this all here. All these emails. Yes.
Let's hear it.
Is that Valerie?
I know it's somebody,
Oh, good.
some of my photos, nature and
Because we're so smart.
Overachievers.
Right. Well, Kenneth favors us.
Well, sometimes greatness is thrust upon you.
Yes, exactly. One of the degrees of honesty. Ooh, that's a hard one. Yes, it is.
Well, jump in, you can assist them, Dee Dee.
Oh, no, that's okay. When is a person considered dishonest? Ooh.
And I know some of the ladies have to leave to run back, so how about 12:15 if we will start reporting out and whatever you have?
Clock up there, huh?
Yeah, it's 12:12, so 3 more minutes.
Yeah, that's another kind of going on there.
So it's the thing that you
It feels weird, like getting capitalized feels so bad. You know, or like having people look at you without that sense of, oh, I can't trust you. Like, that's a really terrible feeling. But it's just if you can avoid it, especially because it really does. Like, relationships and
Yeah.
You guys actually as well.
Yeah. No. No. You know, that does make the choice. Yeah. Well, how would you,
That's a better place to start.
yeah, I think what I hear you saying is that most everybody gets the feeling they want.
always the argument. So, yeah.
Did you ever see that Jim Carrey movie,
But
Liar
if they
Liar?
screw up, if everybody's
I really
wrong
enjoyed
all
it
the
when I saw
time,
this long
that
time.
wouldn't be good either.
But I think, you know, he was the kind of person who would lie all the time, like forced to tell the truth. And only because of that is he able to figure out what's important to him.
What are, I'm gonna just say, what are,
I know, like, everyone has a shack that you like almost gets to split hair. It's like, we're here for a long time. And, like, yeah, so like, we're gonna keep it alert.
Yeah.
yeah, I guess so.
Hey Ted, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for sending me the
Daddy and all. And how are you doing? He hasn't heard from this from you.
Oh, Danny just told me. Yeah. So he just said, okay, this is what's happening. I was like, I gotta go.
She owns.
We're all kind of,
What's her name?
Yeah, I still kind of need it unpacked to sort of see what that's going to mean. But it could be a good
I know a
thing.
few people
could
in
be,
the door,
absolutely.
Hi.
Well, why don't we start? Who wants to go first?
Impression party.
Who wants to go first? Anyone? Okay. Would you stand and read your question and your answers to us? Everyone, we're beginning.
So how does your honesty and integrity affect the way you feel about yourself? And some points that we have is that when you're honest and you're guilt-free, you don't always have to put in so much effort to lie and to deceive somebody else. So it makes your conscience not as heavy. And when you're honest, you become somebody that can be trusted. If you're constantly lying and people are not really able to depend on you or rely on you. And being honest honest will add value to others and yourself, and it's a positive pattern to follow. And also in the healthcare, it can directly affect the patient's life. If you're not doing all the vital signs, or you're not doing all the things that you need to do, it can make it negatively.
Excellent. Anyone have any comments on her comments to that question? Nothing? No one? Anyone? Someone? Nobody? Okay, excellent. Still. Next. Who's next to?
So my question was, what could be the long-term effects of someone stealing or lying, even just a little? Oh, so the first one is that if you steal or lie, it can encourage continued stealing or lying, and like other people would do it too, like they see you stealing, like, oh, maybe I can get away with it too. And then it could like cause you to get fired if it's a job. You can get fined, in prison, or you can lose your license. The company or the person that's affected can experience loss of inventory, trust, or emotional damage. And also, improper medical care can lead to death if you lie about something, like say, oh, like this is what I did, you didn't actually do it, just to cut corners and not get in trouble, you end up lying. Also, your peers and colleagues may not trust you anymore.
Excellent. Any comments? Any additions? Excellent points. Thank you. Oh,
I
Ryan?
think maybe we should go next because we have the question about degrees,
Okay. Why don't you?
right? But we don't have great answers. Are there degrees of honesty, and when is a person considered dishonest?
Are there degrees of dishonesty? And when is a person considered dishonest? Good question. So what did you all have so
Well,
far?
one of us thought there were no degrees of honesty is honesty. Truth is truth. One of us thought there are degrees. And if we just got to talking about what criteria we use for what's an honest act and what isn't an honest person. What isn't. It's really a tough question.
It is.
Because you talked about minor discussions. Are they any different?
Right. So anyone want to comment on that? Because she said the table was a little torn between, are there degrees of dishonesty, and when do you consider someone being dishonest? This is supposed to be a discussion.
I think it makes it hard to really come to a solid answer, just because like in our communities, it's so diverse.
Yes.
That maybe, there's so many different cultures that in one culture, they might consider stealing or cheating acceptable. Maybe more collective cultures where when they share information, that they might think that, hey, I'm not cheating, I'm helping and giving this person information and giving this person food. But in another culture where it may not be like that, they'll consider that cheating. It's not.
Yeah.
So.
And if I'm really hungry or starving, is it, am I take an apple or something? It's hard
It is.
to be totally black and white.
Honestly, I agree. And this woman here was talking about safety issues. When someone comes up to you in the dark and in the middle of the night and asks for your cell phone, or says, do you have a cell phone that I can use? You might say no, and you do have one because you think you.
Right.
I got one too. Just the degrees of honesty kind of reminded me of the whole like truth to power, and like how do you talk back to somebody that you're really loyal to, or like a boss or a loved one or somebody that you kind of want to go along to get along, right? So it's where if you're not in integrity, you're not kind of saying what's true for you. That's a gray area, definitely.
True, well, I do have some scientific research that I will be sharing with you shortly as we go through the rest of the questions. Who's next?
I guess that's a good
Juan.
segue for us. Someone mentioned food. It is wrong to give away, or is it rather wrong to give away free food to a friend if you work at a restaurant, or to take some for yourself, or to occasionally steal something small? And so our question was, are we assuming then that's against restaurant policy, right? So assuming it is, then I guess, yeah, it would be wrong, right? Again, shades of gray, right? So like maybe like if, you know, a starving guy is outside, maybe it'd be a little bit less wrong, I guess. But again, that's like, you know, whether or not that's a shade of gray or if that's a black and white, but
And I can add an example. My husband belongs to a group where they pick up food for the homeless, and they deliver it to different places. And they pick up from Starbucks, several Starbucks. One Starbucks doesn't have food to give. Now, and it's amazing all the others do. And the assumption is, well, maybe they're letting the workers take it home at night, or they're eating it after. You know, we can't judge them. But it's a little odd that they never have anything to donate. And that was an example, I thought, you know, now I suppose it's not harming anyone, but the company has said, yes, please pick up from these different stores. And yet, one never has it.
But another thing we discussed too, like, talking about this question was just, you know, it helps to define what integrity is. And I guess maybe simply we can say that it's just doing the right thing when no one's looking. So the right thing may not necessarily be following somebody else's rules or these rules. Maybe the rule that's higher is like a moral kind of thing where it's like, okay, I see somebody starving, but I can't give them food. What is actually the right thing to do in that situation, you know? So.
You all following that?
Yeah.
Jen?
Yeah, that's good.
You kind of touched on something we were talking about, where it's like honesty makes you confront the situation and lead to change. So like when you were talking about whether it is or it isn't the policy of the restaurant for employees to get food, well, you know, like you could have an honest conversation where you say like, you know, we're really hungry and we would like, you know, I mean, being honest and just saying like, this is where I stand, instead of just kind of leaving it quiet and having to steal, but just come out and, you know, above board say, you know, these are the challenges that we have, like, is there any way that we can lead to change? Because ultimately, like, that, you know, I think honesty is a really good springboard to actually, like, everybody getting their needs met, you know, just through conflict, through resolution, and, yeah.
Good points. Anyone else? Any thoughts before we go to the, yes, please.
Do you think that, like, I know a lot of places that will, you know, have leftover food, but otherwise just throw it away. So I think in that sense, it's okay to like even take it, it's, you know, it's wasteful in the sense that, and it's okay even if it's like a little bit expired, you know, they'll just throw it away. But let's say it's still good, you know, it's okay to take it because it's just gonna go to waste.
Good point. Very good point. Next question. And also, before we do the next question, I did pass out, and I did it for those of you that have to leave very shortly. Integrity, what is it and do I have it? That what my subject was that you saw, and integrity is the hallmark of a person who demonstrates sound moral and ethical principles privately and publicly. What you do privately is what you do publicly. A person displaying integrity draws others to them because they are trustworthy. They are dependable. This means that they are principled and can be counted on to behave in honorable ways even when no one is watching. Which goes back to what you were saying about administering the medication. Nobody's there to see you administer it, and then all of a sudden you realize you had it, and then you're asked, did you administer it? Yes, I did, which is a lie. And then you know if you get caught, there goes your career, there goes all of the work ethic that you put in, the money, down the drain for a moment. There is I meant to submit this to you all. There is a American writer who said, you do not wake up one morning a bad person. It happens by 1,000 tiny surrenders of self-respect to self-interest. Self-respect versus self-interest. It happens by degrees. No one immediately just jumps up and becomes a bad person. It happens by degrees. Next question, Alex.
So we have, why do people cheat even though they know it is wrong, and why shouldn't you? And we said that people cheat because it can be a time saver. For example, if you're staying up late to do homework and you really need to go to bed, maybe the last 3 questions you're going to Google them, you know? Financial need to pass a course or to get a degree or qualification. So if, you know, if you need a passport and you've paid thousands and thousands of dollars, you can't afford to take it over again, then people might cheat to pass. You might see others doing it, or you might feel like it's not a big deal. And we put, well, I suggest we put this, it can be fun sometimes. And I mean, not all the time, it depends what it is, but like, sometimes, like I was telling Rye, like I cheated and I drove against traffic to go down the parking garage, but I saved myself 5 minutes, you know, and I was like, oh, you know. So, to me, that's a degree, and that doesn't make me dishonest, but, you know, I was cheating. So, why shouldn't you? You wouldn't feel good about yourself. It's not fair to those who follow the rules.
And I added the social contract, just to age myself, date myself.
You're only cheating yourself, and then, let's see. Oh yeah, and I guess another one for why do people cheat, sometimes people feel like they might be entitled to cheat, like you get the wrong change at Starbucks and you don't return it, you're like, well, that was an overpriced latte anyway, you know, so you might feel like, well, they're the ones that made the, they made the mistake, so I'll get the extra quarter, you know.
Right.
But then our final reason why shouldn't you is because you're not being a good role model to others.
Excellent. Any comments on those comments? Anyone?
I'd like to, I would
Yes,
just love to
Karen.
throw in that sometimes systems are set up that force people into a no-win situation. When, I mean, if you think about those places where we have workarounds, in order to get your job done, in some ways the system is forcing you to fight the system. I mean, if you think about, or you may have something
Yes.
like, how many of us go exactly the speed limit? And why not?
Good point. Very good point, Ken. You know, I'll sometimes share with people, you know it's against the law to run the red light, right? We all know that. But yet people do it. But I guarantee you, if you got hit in the back of your head each time you ran a red light, you would stop. The punitive action doesn't take place immediately. That's why we kind of have this license to continue moving forward, even though we know it's wrong. But if there was some punitive action, like I said, you would, I guarantee you, you would stop running red lights probably after 2 hits in the back of the head. Maybe, or maybe not. But good point, because the social environments sometimes are set up for failure. And then you come into this situation or this action that requires you to be just a little bit dishonest.
And to complicate it further, when there's a strong power imbalance, oftentimes people are discouraged from telling their truth. I mean, I grew up in a different era, the don't speak, don't tell. So if you were queer, you were definitely discouraged from being truthful. And mercifully that's changed, but there are, anytime you've got a strong power imbalance, be aware that that's going to complicate things.
Exactly. Very good.
It's real good.
Next question? Thanks, Cam. Juan.
How can you support a friend who is trying to change and have more integrity? I'll let you sorry.
We kind of talked about how, I guess comparing it to somebody who's trying to lose weight, where maybe part of their challenge is that they overeat and they intend to eat more when they're not around. So where somebody who thinks that they need to change in their levels of integrity or increase their integrity, and maybe have like, where they tend to do wrong things when no one's looking, maybe have a check-in with them, have conversations with them on a regular basis, maybe, and talk about, hey, so what did you do, last week that you think falls under this umbrella of, having more integrity, and maybe even give them examples of things that other people have done, and,
What I said is that maybe to provide a different perspective, if sometimes if you're in your own tunnel vision, if you can just remind them that that doesn't always work with people.
Good point. Very good point. Anyone else have a comment on that? And I did pass off the define your values because I'm going to address that in a moment. But I think we have 2 more questions out, right? Oh, Michael. I think
We have one.
and Ted. Michael, what's your question?
What can you do to change how you and your friends act in terms of integrity? So the first response we had was be a role model for your friends responsibility and with integrity, other people will be able to see it and they'll follow you and they'll act according to it. The next answer was be honest. Admit when you have done wrong and encourage your friends to do the same.
That's very good, which is hard to do on occasion. To come back and make that about face, to say, you know what, I misspoke. You know what, let me give you a good point or a good example. So the rumor mill is gossiping, and so you picked up some gossip and you've passed it on. Now come to find out that piece of gossip was an untruth. Now that person, even though you didn't say it to the person's face, you did talk about that person, right? So should you go to that person and say, hey, listen, I contributed to this rumor mill that has denigrated your name? Actually, I mean, if you put it out there, shouldn't you go to that person who doesn't even know you talked about them and go and apologize to them and ask their forgiveness? That's the hard part. But that models integrity. But that's the hardest thing to do, to go, number one, to admit you're wrong. Then number two, to go to somebody who does not even know you mentioned their name and go to them and ask for an apology, ask that they would accept your apology. Michael, continue.
Praise those seen exhibiting integrity. Set them as examples for others to follow. So if somebody else is doing well, you make sure you praise them so that they are encouraged to keep doing it.
Mm-hmm. Wow, nice.
And have an open mind so others are not afraid to admit mistakes.
Yeah, to go back to Cam's point about our organizations that we work in, based on the hegemony or based on the power bases that are in effect, it's hard to buck that system. And it's really hard to go back and to say something to someone in this power position. Let me give you an example from me. Whenever I need to discuss something serious with my boss, Audrey, that's kind of in and out, I'll ask her permission to speak freely. And that kind of sets the tone where I can say, Audrey, this is what I'm thinking, and it takes her off the defense, and it kind of attunes her ears a little more. I mean, it's okay to say, I'm asking you, will you grant me the permission to speak what's on my mind here without bias, without prejudice? Will you hear me?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me, like, when they were training us when I was an RA, I was like 19 years old. One of the only guidelines they told us was observe and comment non-judgmentally. I mean, like, the non-judgmentally was kind of in parentheses, but if you see anything, especially something that you're uncomfortable with, notice it and then say something to the person directly, and just, for the same reason I think where you were talking about the hitting in the back of the head, so so that there's not silence, so that there's no, so that when people are not in integrity, it doesn't just kind of go under the radar and be forgotten. But it's like, it's noticed, and it's like saying, listen, I'm not judging you, but I see this,
Excellent, which piggybacks back to Michael's comment as well. To you, Ted Carroll.
Yeah, so ours was, why should you change and try to become totally honest? And her name was Yuvi, is that right?
Yuvi.
Yuvi, so she said, it makes you more reliable so that people can trust you, and that increases the quality of your relationships when people know that they can trust you. She said, we said the same thing a few different ways, that there's no discrepancy within yourself. I've noticed that people who lie to others also tend to lie to themselves, and then they also really often have a hard time knowing what to change about themselves, because they'll lie rather than actually confront challenging situations, either with other people or with their own selves. And I think being honest with yourself and with others really makes it so that if it's something that makes you uncomfortable, is something that you can identify right away and then work to change, instead of just sort of try and circumvent around. And that leads to you knowing yourself better. It leads to everyone, hopefully getting what they want through that sort of process of conflict and dialogue and change. And then it gets easier the more you do it.
All right. Comments? Yes, please.
I would say that you get an inner peace. That's what you meant about being congruent. And also maybe it builds your confidence and your self-esteem, because you're not a cheater. You got to where you are, or your job or whatever, And you're confident in your abilities because you know you didn't cheat to get there.
Right. Very good. Anyone else? I think that's all of the questions. So let me just kind of tell you what the integrity gurus are saying. Integrity affects every area of your life. They say school, work, friends, family, and even your self-image are affected by whether or not you have integrity. People judge your character according to your integrity. People judge you based on not just the presentation that you give them corporeally, but they judge you based on the words that are coming out of your mouth and whether or not those words are consistent over time. Integrity affects your self-image, which goes back to what the young lady said. You cannot feel good about yourself if you are lying, cheating, or stealing. You just can't. If you don't respect others for that type of behavior, then you won't respect yourself. Doing what is right instead of going along with the crowd will give you pride in who you are as a person. I mean, it's very hard on occasion to swim upstream, but somebody's got to do it. That's the bottom line. Somebody has got to do it. And why not let it be you, or me, or us? Somebody has got to do it to stem the tide of acts of lack or the lack of integrity. All dishonesty, and this is what the integrity gurus are saying, all dishonesty lacks integrity. All. That encompasses the little white lies, the little no harm, no foul things. They are saying all dishonesty lacks integrity. Cheating on just one answer on the test is the same as cheating on the whole test. Stealing a candy bar or a car are both still wrong. Telling a little white lie is still lying. Then they go on to say having integrity is a choice that you make, because I can't make it for you. You can't make it for me, but integrity is a choice you have to make every day. And they go on to say nobody forces you to do the wrong thing. Be a leader and make your own choices, because at the end of the day, the consequences will come back to you. Ultimately, right? Yes, no, maybe. You may lose some friends by trying to be more honest, but you'll also attract new friends and help others by your example to be more honest. Maybe what's the old saying? Association brings assimilation. Whoever you're hanging out with, you're going to take on some of those subtle nuances. And if those persons are dishonest, you're going to pick up some dishonest traits or some dishonest attributes. The other thing it says, is the gurus say, decide to have integrity and become a champion. Try always telling the truth and being honest for a while, in school, at home, with your friends, everywhere. It may be hard at first, but it is worth it. It is worth it. Find friends who are honest and who will encourage you to have integrity. Find those friends, because like-minded people will find like-minded people. Your path will always cross someone who is similarly thinking in the same vein that you are. The other thing that I gave you was this sheet that says how values help you. I gave that to you because here the gurus also says, so how can you start working and developing on your own integrity? Define your values. Don't get squeezed into the call of the world, or as Jack London said, the call of the wild. Define your values. You can't live by values if you don't know what you truly believe in. While you're here in school, you're in the BSN program, right?
Elms.
Elms, you're in the Elms program. You wouldn't be here if you didn't believe there was a successful outcome at the end of these adventures and these challenges that you are encountering, right? So you cannot live by the values that you don't have. You cannot believe in them if you don't have them. So you've got to set up a core set of values. This is who I am intrinsically, and this is who I'm going to be despite the storms and the challenges of life that come to affect me. You've got to make up your mind on a daily basis, because at the end of the day, you've got to face you at the end of the day. I tell folks all the time that when I wake up in the morning, I look myself in my own eyes and I say, Kenneth, this is the only you have. You got to make sure this is the best you that you deliver on a daily, consistent basis. I look in my eyes. In the evening when I come home, I look in my eyes and I say, Kenneth, did you do the best that you could? And I have to admit, no, I didn't. But if I'm granted the opportunity to do more tomorrow or to make up for what I've done, I will. But here's the thing, the corollary that I'm trying to get you to see, the ancillary part is, there are some people who wake up every day, they just put water on their face and they're out. They don't even look at themselves. They don't make any plans for the day. I'm suggesting that just take a moment, look at yourself in your own eyes and say, are you going to be the best you that you can be today? And that means maintaining that level of integrity that you know you need in order to get through the day. Make sense? Kind of, sort of, maybe? The second step they say, and I've given you like I said, how to establish values. Analyze each choice you make. Analyze each choice you make. Often people cut corners, which is what you said, Alex, with the cheating on the test, and, well, not you driving downstairs or driving the wrong way on the, well, actually the gurus say you did wrong, but, okay, so anyway, they say analyze the choices you make. Often people cut corners or make bad choices when they think no one is watching. And the truth is, somebody's always watching. I've come to find that to be true in my own personal experiences. I've had someone come and tell me, Kenneth, were you on so-and-so corner? Well, no, that wasn't me. Yeah, that was you. Weren't you wearing that black jacket and those purple tennis shoes? Yeah, that was me. Having integrity means that no matter what, you make the right choice, especially when no one is watching. You usually know what's right and wrong, although sometimes you might need some quiet time to figure it out. If you're not sure what the right choice is, ask yourself these two questions. If my choice was printed on the front page of a newspaper for everyone to see, would I be okay with the choice that I'm thinking about making? And if you would be okay with it being publicized, then maybe it's an okay choice to make. Second question is, if I make this choice, will I feel okay with myself after I've made the choice? So see, one is an external or an objective question. The other one is an internal, subjective question, which are two questions that you ought to ask before you're about to encounter or embark upon something that could be detrimental to you. Last thing that they say, which goes back to the question Michael had, number 3, encourage integrity. People with integrity often have the same characteristics. They're humble. They have a strong sense of self. They have high self-esteem and they're self-confident. These characteristics are important because sometimes you'll be under intense pressure from others to make the wrong choice. So really, at the end of the day, the outcomes are based on what you put into the day at the very beginning. Nothing in, nothing out. Something in, something out. But if the something is the right thing rather than the best thing, because the best thing might be best for this moment, the right thing will be right forever. There's the difference. The best thing right now for us is to do X, Y, and Z. And so 5 years from now, you say, why did you make that decision? But the right decision will always be the right decision. You've got to take that time out to ferret that out for yourself. So, on that note, I'm done. Any comments, questions, concerns, issues? Right?
I love it.
It's a daily challenge.
It is.
It is a daily challenge. Thank you so much,
Oh.
Kenneth. Thank you.